The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Insight Pitch with Skip Lockwood, number 38, Skip Lockwood. I'm Ralph Tycho, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and Skip is here. He is here. How are you, sir?
I am really good. The little surgery I had was a couple weeks ago. I feel better. It's healing. I don't feel grumpy anymore. I feel like everything's back on the mend. Really back to everything I want to do pretty soon. So I'm very happy, very fortunate to be on the other side of it. Thank you.
Good. You were a trooper last week, right in the midst of your recuperation. I hope it helped your head.
Yeah, it does. I think it's good to work through. You got to talk it out as well as get through the adhesions. I think talking it out with you was very helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always fun, and it's always insightful, and I get to learn something from someone who's been there. And if you're in the audience listening to this, you will admit that we all, as fans, as kids, wanted to do what Skip Lockwood did twice, both as a position player, makes the majors, and as a pitcher, makes the majors. Not only that, he goes from being a starting pitcher to a closer. You had a terrific career, and I remember you most from the Mets, of course, because I'm a fanatical Met fan, and as I was saying off the air, the Met teams that I most appreciated over the years were the teams that fought adversity and kept it together. The 73 team was my all-time favorite, but what I called the Bruce Beauclair years, right after they traded Tom Seaver, and you happened to be there right in the midst of it, and we have a lot to talk about today, but I can't wait to tell you my Doug Flynn, Frank Tavares story. And as a pitcher, you may appreciate this. I'm a fanatical fan. They come out, the Mets do, to San Francisco, and Joe Torre is the manager, and they're not playing well, and I noticed something that I thought might help them. Frank Tavares was not as good a fielding shortstop as was Doug Flynn, and Doug Flynn was playing second base. And I thought I'd call Joe, have the chutzpah, the balls, to get on the phone and call Joe Torre at his hotel in San Francisco and tell him that I'm a New Yorker, you're from Brooklyn, I'm from Queens, my relatives are from Brooklyn. I said, I have an observation. May I make it? And he said, sure. I said, I think Flynn would be better at shortstop than Tavares. And I don't know if, and he kind of smiled. He says, I'll think about that. And damned if the next day Flynn wasn't playing shortstop. I should check a baseball retrospective, or they have all the box scores of every game that's ever played. I should look at it. But I'm sure the next day Flynn's playing shortstop and Tavares is playing second, or if Tavares wasn't playing, someone else might have been playing second base. Do you think Flynn was a damn good shortstop as well as a good second baseman?
I think it's hard to be good at both of those positions. They're both in the middle of the infield, but I think there's a different read off the catcher. So I think a second baseman reads the catcher and reads the pitches differently than the shortstop does. Depending on who's hitting, I think the shortstop gets to cheat a little bit more, and he can cheat on the pitch side. So let's assume there's a left-handed batter and it calls for a breaking ball. I really think that the shortstop can cheat a little bit towards second base and be aware that the ball may come up that way. And I'm not sure the second baseman will always cheat towards the hole. I think the second baseman has more of a look at the field. Doesn't sound like he should. They're both standing in the middle of the diamond. But I really feel like the second baseman can anticipate a lot better. I think Dougie Flynn played a great shortstop. And I don't care.
What stands out in my mind is that Joe Torre, you guys were struggling in those years for sure. Joe Torre says, what the hell, I'll try something. And that's a good trait to have in life. All you could do is try. It may not work. It may, but sometimes trying something new is better than being stagnant at whatever you're doing that isn't working anyway. So
I don't think Dougie had a really strong arm. I think Joe put him at second base because he didn't have that strong arm. So if he had to go,
I remember Taveras having a stronger arm, but he didn't have
a stronger arm.
Very much range, and I like Doug Flynn a lot.
I think he got to a lot of balls. I don't ever care if somebody throws out a runner from deep in the hole. If the shortstop has to go to his right, makes a pick, it's in the hole. You're not going to throw anybody out anyway from over there. So that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is a ball up the middle. And if you can get the sign and the ball's coming, and you can get up a ball up the middle and throw him out at first base, that makes a big difference to a pitcher, I think. And then there's also that dynamic of the second baseman, shortstop, double play combination. And I'm not sure whether Dougie was a great second baseman, in the transition to go to first base. But I do think as he went towards first base from shortstop, I think he was a much better fielder, much better thrower from that position. So I agree with your observation. I'm glad Joe Torre took your advice.
Yeah, well, it's something I'll always remember, not because I had this great advice necessarily, just because a guy like that and who reaches the heights in whatever profession one is in, demonstrated to me that take a chance attitude isn't necessarily all that radical, that people can do it and not stick to the proverbial book, as it were. And got to do that in life. Got to float. Got to
you got that right.
Got to zig and zag, as it were. So that was my and those. I mean, this is like 30, 40 years ago now, and these memories are so vivid of you guys coming back to San Francisco. I'd go every time the Mets would come to San Francisco. I'd sit behind third base if I possibly could, and it was just tremendous days. That's
San Francisco ballpark was, as you know, a tough place to play. It was warm during batting practice in the first couple innings, and then it got cold.
Right, and bitter cold because of that wind, that cold wind coming in. It was an advantage if you played there. For the home team, they would learn what it took. They had these tremendous parkers that would go all the way down to the players. It was like football parkers. And they go all the way down to the ankles of the players when they were on the bench and in the bullpens, and they'd learn to use the ballpark as an advantage. But
the bullpen was always on the field. So in San Francisco, if you try to get to the dugout, that was entirely across the field, past first base, and up a runway. So it was a long trek. If you wanted to get, hot chocolate or get warm or something like that in the fifth or sixth inning, anticipating that you might pitch, it was a hike. And you had to time it, so you had to run over there and, get your coffee or your hot chocolate. It took a
or
half
even
an
just
inning.
going to the bathroom for crying out loud between innings.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. But that's where the dugout, that's where the locker rooms were over there. It was a long ways away.
Absolutely. So, Skip, talk about what you wanted to cover today. I'm always so enthralled with your choice of your composition, as it were.
Ralph, the texture of what we've been discussing is deeply personal, as I'm sure you know. I enjoy the discussions with you because it comes from when I speak to you, you're able to reach deep inside and bring feelings and thoughts out that I might not otherwise have considered. So there's a special gift that you have. And in the last couple of weeks, we had a sort of a structure of our discussion is, what goes on in the field? What is it that goes on when you lace up the sneakers and you go out to the field? What's going on out there? What happens before you step on the field? Tell me about what's going on the field. And then, if at all possible, what is there after the game? What's the residual value of any of the things that happened out there? So we began our discussion, and a couple of weeks ago we talked about preparing for the game, trying to get ready, trying to prepare yourself. What were the things that would work, or what things don't work? And they were, again, deeply personal for me. So I was relating to you stories and ideas that happened to me, things that I used. One of the first things we talked about was the fact that you should roll a movie of yourself before the game begins, to the extent that you can. Roll some kind of cinema and put yourself in the director's seat and watch you play. Watch yourself play a ball game. For me, it was pitching and being a closer, but watch that movie with intensity and be able to digest what you're doing and how you're doing it and with clarity. And if you could, hear yourself out there and hear the crowd and as much feeling as you could put into it, feel the baseball and feel your toes against the rubber and all of that movie that you play or could play before you ever get on the mound, for me, was a breakthrough. The fact that I could do that with some repetition, it got clearer and clearer, more clear as I got more practice with it. And specifically, what I tried to do, as we talked about last week, was I like to practice my breathing. I wanted to control my heart rate. I wanted to be able to control, as I was standing on the mound, how much stress and how much agitation my whole body was going to go through. Because you knew you were going to have to go out there. There's 30 or 40,000 people on a Sunday afternoon who are going to watch you play. My God, I mean, you could get sick to your stomach. You could die of fright
Hey, if you could think about the millions that are watching on TV as well, not just in person, and good, bad, or indifferent, you could become infamous from a single play.
Right. You know, one bad, it wasn't as dramatic as it is today, but one bad play or one bad scene, it could impact you for the, you know, you could be ever known as a guy.
You could be a Ralph Branca, you could be a Bill Buckner.
Absolutely.
Fellow podcaster on this network is a former closer as well, Mark Littell, who I do a show with. And Mark had a Chris Chambliss experience that he's forever remembered by. What would one remember Skip Lockwood by? If anything in particular that you think you're remembered most for?
I don't think there was one particular. I think if you ask
I'll rephrase the question. What day, event, pitch, instance do you almost think about primarily when you think about, if there is one, something in your career that that stands out to you? If I just asked you that one question, what would be the first thing that came to mind?
I do think about things, but I don't think about them as snapshots. I think about them as a movie. So I think of a movie picture rolling. I picture stepping out of the cart at Shea Stadium, going out with Joe Torre and having him hand me a ball and being able to strike the first guy out with 3 or 4 pitches. And I remember the look on Jerry Grote's face, even though he had a mask on behind the plate. I knew what his face looked like. It was the intensity matched by the performance in a place like Shea Stadium for a team like the New York Mets. So the movie that I play is sequential, you know, like one of those old tin-type movies that they used to play, you know, with the Victrolas and the movies the snapshots which would go forward as you progressed. The pitching at Shea Stadium and getting batters out and having Tim Foley come over to me at the end of the game and give me a hug at the end of a save, in a save situation. Boy, I think of those things a lot. I can still picture those things.
Do you have what I call a Mickey Mantle nightmare? He was reputed to have this recurring nightmare of not being able to get in the stadium. He's outside of Yankee Stadium. They're announcing his name and number, and he just can't get in the door after he retired. Do you have anything like that?
Well, that's true. Once you retire, you can't get back in that door. There's no handle on that side of the door. It only opens from the inside. No, I don't. I never feared retirement. I never, was afraid of what was going to come next. I was too engaged in trying to do it. I was kind of naive and stupid to a certain degree as I was trying to play as hard as I could. I was trying to come to the mound with more intensity, a better fastball, better location, more aggressive than the pitcher that was leaving. So whoever it was that was going out, I was coming in, and I wanted to take command. I wanted to take control. I wanted to be tougher, more aggressive. I wanted to be the pitcher that would force the issue on the mound. I don't know whether you ever remember the pitching. You probably do it if you were there at the same time. But I was silly out there, and I was a horse pawing at the rubber, and the batter was calling timeout while I was trying to throw a fastball.
We used to call those plot. You were a plotter.
I was out there trying to be very intense. Silly as it might sound, I think everybody caught the idea. The 8 guys behind me all knew that I was going to go out there.
They knew your heart was in it.
Yeah, I was fully committed. And that's the way I took the rubber. That's the way I took the mound. I remember doing that. I remember coming in there and as you and I talked about, taking a baseball, I would try to tear the seams. If you give me a baseball and I rubbed it up, I wasn't putting, sawdust or anything on the ball. I was trying to move the seams on that baseball. I wanted to control the baseball. I wanted to be able to control the situation. Looking back at it, it was maybe a little bit too intense, maybe a little bit too much. But boy, oh boy,
you got to be what you are. You got to be what you are. It would be hard to temper that. And I don't think there are many coaches that would have wanted you to temper that. And I'll bet there were a number of players, pitchers, position players, that had much more talent than yourself, but didn't have that intensity. Can you think of anybody offhand? And didn't succeed because they didn't have the focus or intensity?
I thought there was a lot of players that came through the Milwaukee organization because I played in Milwaukee in the early years, and Milwaukee had a parade of very young talent and kids like myself that came through that organization that didn't quite make it. I mean, they made it, but they didn't. You wouldn't remember their names. Bill Parsons, a guy named Jimmy Slayton, Jim Colborn, guys that pitched for that team that were excellent pitchers, but it wasn't an excellent situation, so they never got a chance to rise and pitch, when the heat was on.
How much of that is coaching?
I think it's situational, Will. I think it's, if you get a chance to pitch in a big city for a team that's going for the pennant, it's entirely different than pitching in Milwaukee in the middle of the summer when nobody's watching and nobody cares. There's 25 guys on the team, and we all pick each other up. We all try as hard as we could, but there's millions and millions of people in New York, and they used to come out to Shea Stadium and expect something. They raised the level of play because of how they cheered. People don't realize how much it matters to the players on the field that the people are so committed. And, players are stoic and they're stone-faced and chisel-chinned and all of this on the mound. But that's a lot of bull. Your emotions run up and down, and the people make a difference. And when I was coming to New York, I was coming to Broadway, and I felt that. I knew that. I wanted to play there. I wanted to be there. I wanted to play for the Mets. It was a bigger deal for me to have that opportunity than ever before, than any other team that I ever played for. So the situation makes a big difference, I think, for players.
Okay, but it's what gets you there, though. I'm talking about, say, in the minors, guys you played with, that were, you say, this guy's got heat, he's movement, he's nasty, this, that, and the other thing, and someone who just didn't have the mindset. What did Yogi Berra say? 80% of it is mental, and the other 50% is physical, or something like that. It is mostly mental. Am I correct?
I think to a certain degree, what happens with great players is they can apply themselves. The people that get to the big leagues are talented. The men that can play at a big league level are very talented people, and they're like the Red Sox. The Red Sox have a parade of ball players that come back and forth to AAA every year. Are they better than the ones that are there? Not necessarily. Can they put a string of games together that win them a spot in the rotation or secure second base? Because Pedroia is hurt. Who wins the second base job in Boston?
Right.
It's a special kind of talented person that can do that. I don't believe that I ever saw. Maybe this will startle you a little bit. I don't believe I ever saw a person that had enormous talent that never get a chance to play. I saw kids with talent, hard to evaluate one versus another, good hitters not being able to hit with the bases loaded or not being able to hit when they're down in the count, not being able to hit at a big league level. It's different than when the pressure's off and you go to, AAA and you have a couple of good outings. I really never met anybody in my life that I thought was Reggie Jackson and couldn't find his way to the big leagues. The people that I saw came to the big leagues and asserted themselves. You knew it was going to happen. I never saw a person with extraordinary talent that sabotaged their careers or, were forced out of the game before they were. I saw injuries. I saw Bobby Valentine get injured and didn't play very well after that. I saw guys hurt their arms.
Is that when he ran into the fence?
Yeah, the best shortstop in the National League, and played outfield for a day and broke his leg. Grotesque injury in between his knee and his ankle, bone sticking out, kind of an injury. Awful looking thing. And he was a great talent. Very difficult to see. Stuff like that haunts you a little bit. But as far as talent goes and getting a chance to play, I really never saw anybody that had, extraordinary talent that didn't get a chance to show it.
Good. I mentioned the Bruce Beauclair years. I know virtually nothing about Bruce Beauclair. And because I've used that analogy all these many years, why don't you tell me something about Bruce Beauclair as a teammate? I hope he was a good guy.
I would remember him if he wasn't. Bruce came to New York, and I think he was a bit of an introvert. Didn't want the bright lights on him. There's only a few of us that enjoy getting up there and having the lights shine on you. I don't think Bruce wanted to be where he was. I don't remember that he responded very well to the pressure in New York.
Okay.
What I do remember about him is he being a very patient hitter and very good with the breaking ball. I remember Bruce was able to adjust his swing because he didn't have a very big stride. I remember him being able to adjust his swing to the breaking ball and getting a lot of hits the other way, which is indicative of a very patient hitter. We weren't friends at the time. We were teammates, but I didn't run with him. He was a guy that I think was better suited for a smaller market team.
Huh. Interesting. You said something in the description that was very, very telling of the type of person or personality that you have. Was he a good guy? I'm quoting you. Well, if he wasn't, I'm paraphrasing what you say. If he wasn't, I really wouldn't have remembered him. that's a good way of looking at life. You just look over the people that are in the way, so to speak, and just get on with it. Very telling.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to talk about today, my friend?
Yeah, there's a lot we haven't finished here. So
we got a lifetime of this.
Okay. The next time we meet, I really like to dig deeper, and we touched upon it last time, but I was really talking and walking like Groucho Marx at the time, and I would really like to talk about what's it like to be on the field, the control and control mechanisms, procedures, stuff like that.
Oh, you talked about your anchor, which was so terrific.
And I want to talk about anchoring. I think that's a very important idea that people may not know about. That I think. So here's the thing with me. You know, baseball, as you said to me before, can transcend into life. There are things that we talk about that have other meanings. It doesn't matter if you're a great baseball player if you can't use those skills in other ways. I see players that get out of sports, that get lost, that lose their way as a role model, lose their way in life sometimes. And I think that if it's possible to talk about the way that things that you can learn on the field can help you, and to your words, transcend into other things that actually work, that actually are good for you, actually give you control off the field and beyond and past sports. Man, now you're talking about something I think that really has value. And I would love to, if you want to, the next series of times that we talk, to dig deeper into those kinds of things, because those are the things that I live now and the things that I very much value out of the remembering my career.
I would love to do that. That would be ideal. Everybody, including me, will get something out of that. And I look forward to doing that.
I do too.
Beautiful. Till next time, my friend. I'm going to end the show, and maybe I haven't with you on, but I want you to hear this, and I want you to pitch in your thoughts. I'm imploring the people that listen to our podcasts on the network, everybody out there, if they would accumulate lightly, gently used, or even new children's books and take them to the Head Start program in whatever community you live in. I think it would be terrific. Kids need to read. They need to get their noses out of the devices. They need to develop an imagination, become school ready. And I think it would be great because by definition, the Head Start program addresses the people, the young children that need the Head Start. So take the books down there. It would really give me pleasure. And let me know what you think of that, Skip.
I love that idea. You know, my daughter was a twice volunteer at AmeriCorps. And each of those, I have 5 kids. Number 2 daughter went to California for a whole year, and then to another place in the Boston area for another year, and volunteered her time. And in both places, she started lending libraries for exactly what you're talking about. Gently used, slightly used books that were cataloged and reissued to kids in the area. Both of these programs that she started through America are still working and still doing good work. She was very involved in, and so was I, in both of these programs. It was a teaching children the importance of their imagination and bringing words to life. Very, very important to me. I'm glad this is something that you've taken up as a cause here. I know it very well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Skip. Nice words. Please pass on my thanks to your daughter from society and to yourself.
I sure will.
All right.
I sure will.
Be well. We'll talk next week.
I will.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll be back. Name of the show is Insight Pitch with Skip Lockwood. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all, as you can see. I'll be back with Skip next week. Adios, everybody.